Okay, I'd like to call the council work session to order. Welcome everyone to the Bellefonte Borough Council work session. No council action is taken during this work session. Mr. Bernier, do you have a trivia question for us tonight?
I do.
Great.
This state is the first to see the sunrise each morning. This state.
Maine.
That's right, Maine, because it is furthest east, is the first state to see the sunrise each morning. The coastline has lots of rocky cliffs and beaches. Written by children.
Very nice.
Just for those of you that didn't know that answer.
Great. Great.
So it wasn't a PO.
Now you know.
Now we know.
So we're learning more about the entire United States now.
Yeah, I'm running out of Pennsylvania trivia. So many mountains and Mount Laurel and deer.
Okay, we'll move on to the first item for discussion, and that is item A, Climate Action Plan / Environmental Advisory Board discussion. So, anybody like to start out with some discussion? And we'll make this work session go real quick.
And I would prefer not going first,
Whatever you want.
but, because I usually am, but I would like to have somebody else speak first.
I'll start.
Okay.
So, when this came up, I had to think about this. I looked at it for a couple of weeks. And, as far as the climate action plan goes, I'm still not quite sure where the results are. We still haven't seen any results. We haven't gotten anything back from the surveys as far as some of the things we had questioned, I think, the first time. There may have been a couple come back, but I don't remember what they all were. The other problem is I think there's parts of that does not have information in it that relates to the climate. And so I think that's another thing that bothers me about this program. And I also am bothered by the dates that are set as goals, because if Bellefonte has to spend money to do anything within this climate action plan, then it's either going to have to raise taxes or find another way to find money to do those jobs. That's my main concern. I don't want Bellefonte to suffer sending money out that we can't afford to send out.
My concern too is the money. What will the taxpayers have to cover? Some of the goals are very ambitious for the relatively near future. An electric vehicle, I really don't want one. I would rather have a hybrid, if anything. I don't want to be responsible for solar panels that have to be dealt with after they expire. That's a community issue. I know they're dealing with it now in California. It's a big issue out there. And there are other concerns. People just can't afford some of these things. I do believe in climate change. I know it's a problem. And I like some of the ideas that are listed, but some are just too ambitious for this tiny little 2-mile borough.
Well, let me add to that. It's not even 2 miles. It's like a mile, 1 mile and 6, something like that. But the other thing that bothers me is we have all this stuff going on around the world. We have people in leadership in Canada that can't put a fire out because all the smoke comes down through Pennsylvania and through other states. We have a war going on in a couple different places, and to me, it's like, how do you make all this back up? I don't know how that works. I can't understand. And I hear nobody complaining about the smoke that comes down and why is that happening? I know it's a remote area, but they've got planes like anybody else who can fly over and at least try to get some of the fire out, but they don't seem to care, and you don't hear anything about it.
Reading through all of the written comment that we got from the public, approaching both sides of the issue, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that these are going to be mandates rather than ideas. I believe the state of Pennsylvania passed legislation a couple of years ago prohibiting any municipality from dictating access to or choice of heating fuel or energy source by any customer, whether it's residential or business. I personally have made the choice to pick a green energy generator for my electricity. I pay less, almost a penny less per kilowatt hour now at a fixed rate than is the variable rate from West Penn Power, and I did this without taking out a second mortgage and punching holes in my roof. So there are ways to address these issues without spending a lot of money personally or from a government level, and there are ways to make smart choices that make long-term differences. My real concern is that we live in a fool's paradise. We live in an area that has not experienced an extreme weather event. We have some stinky hot days, we have some cold days in the winter, but we have never had a catastrophic event that wipes out the town, wipes out every cornfield around us, or causes us to really suffer the way so many people in the world are now. If we have a fire come through town or through this area, we can rebuild. It would be a pain in the neck, but it would happen. You can't replant a cornfield in August and expect a food crop. Every one of these events affects air quality, water quality, and food sources for everybody in the world. So for us to be complacent about this is being very short-sighted.
Well, to be honest, it reads as though it is a mandate, and that's my issue. You know, people are supposed to, 80% of people or whatever, are supposed to switch to electric heat. Well, electricity isn't expensive, but the distribution charges are often as much, if not more, than the electricity we use. That's where the real problem is.
But that circles back to what I just said about you cannot be forced to choose an energy source. That is still your choice. You want to use fossil fuel to heat your house, that's still your choice. Columbia Gas is at this moment digging up half the town to redo the lines. They are not going anywhere anytime soon.
But again, like I said, it reads like a mandate, as though these things will be in 80% of the population of the borough will have this. It's not saying that we suggest or our goal is to, or preferably, it's the wording.
Okay, so it's more the language of the document rather than the goals.
Yes.
My concern too is trying to get like our fleet for Bellefonte to be electric vehicles when I don't think there's much evidence right now that they're very reliable vehicles. And then what happens to these electric vehicle batteries when they're no longer usable? They end up in a landfill, I'm assuming. I don't know that they can be recycled. And the solar panel issue with, Mutton Borough buildings to get solar panel, how efficient is that? How much cost savings are we gonna get by that? And how much is it gonna cost the taxpayer if we're gonna do all these lofty things like replace our fleet and put solar panels? I know a lot of my constituents don't want to pay any more in taxes to do stuff like this. They want us to just stick to keeping the lights on and the streets clean and passable and, all the stuff that we normally do. I mean, not that they're not concerned about the environment. There's a lot of things we can do that don't cost money that can help us protect our environment. There's a lot of things that I do. I've been a reduce, reuse, recycler way before that term even really came about. My family's been doing it since probably before the 50s or 60s. We've always been that way. I catch my rainwater, I use it to re-water my plants outside, I catch my dehumidifier water, and I flush my toilets with it on occasion when I need it. I use reusable grocery bags, try not to get the plastic. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do that make a good effect on the environment without costing an arm and a leg.
Just to add to, not making my comment, but when you look at the survey that was just complete, and even Deb, you said this, that it appears to be that most people are doing what they can right now. In the survey, it demonstrates that. So beyond that, I'm not sure what you're asking for.
But why abandon the progress that we've made?
We're not abandoning it because people are already doing it. If you look at the survey, that's what it tells you.
I understand that, but part of the idea here is to continue to educate the public to new and different things that are going to come along, not just say, okay, we're all using reusable grocery bags.
I think it's a
Fine and dandy.
constant education program. I don't think it's something you start today and end in a year.
That's a major part of what the EAB does, because as Deb said, goals are goals. They're not things that are mandated. They're things that we would like to see. And when you have a plan, you put what you would like to see, and then I think in the plan it says every 5 years to go back and see, are these reasonable, or do we need to revise them? It is not something saying you have to do this by X date. It says we would like to have this done by X date. If not, we look at it and say, well, what do we have to do as a do-over on the plan and update it, not get rid of it. And education is the major factor. I do have a long statement I can make.
Sure.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you, Doug, for holding off on this discussion until after I returned from my vacation. Having said that, I was somewhat surprised to see this on the agenda today. At the last meeting I attended in July, one of the council members said that he didn't believe anything had been done by the EAB or by the borough that addresses the climate action plan. So in response, the EAB compiled a list of sustainability accomplishments by the borough community and the government. This includes nonprofits, residents, businesses, Penn State, the borough, and county government, which some of you have already heard around the table already. I was surprised to see that this document was not included in the packet, as it is instrumental in helping you make your decision this evening. So I contacted Don yesterday and asked him to send it to you before the meeting this evening, which is why you received it this morning rather than with the packet on Friday. I hope you read it. The last EAB meeting was held on August 9th while I was out of the country. The notes that I received state that the EAB discussed the planned vote that's happening this evening. They discussed ways to inform the public and encourage attendance at the meeting or to submit written comment. They agreed to email all survey respondents who gave us their email addresses. There was no effort to determine which people were supportive of the cap and the EAB and which were not. As a result, as of right now, we've received 10 letters in support and 3 letters opposed to keeping the cap and the EAB. In addition, there are several people in the room this evening, most of whom I suspect are supportive of continuing the work of the EAB. However, I haven't asked, so I don't know for sure. Here are the highlights from the report that you received on the accomplishments this morning. The EAB surveyed over 200 residents and business members throughout the borough. More than half of the residents said that it is important or very important for all of us collectively or individually, as well as local government, to address sustainability issues, which means us addressing these issues. In addition to the completed survey, the borough, sometimes in collaboration with others, has completed 10 sustainability programs or projects, like installing 40 shade trees in the right-of-ways, as well as trees and bushes in Talleyrand Park and the waterfront walkway. Another example of sustainability is the upgraded lighting and crosswalks in the commercial district, which reduce our energy usage. We have so far completed 8 workshops and sponsored an open house to provide people with educational information on different areas of sustainability, including energy audits, backyard gardening and composting, stormwater management, solar energy, and electric vehicles for both businesses and residents. There are 2 workshops that are currently on the calendar for this fall. If this is turned down this evening, both of them will disappear. One is an overview of the climate action plan for the public on September 16th. The second one is community composting at Musser Lane on October 7th. In addition, there are 2 more workshops that are in the planning for either this fall or spring. One is a reprise of the stormwater management program we held in 2019, and the second one is a workshop on pollinators that you as council request the EAB put together. Following the list of accomplishments is a second document that I attached summarizing the Sustainable PA certification program. Sustainable PA has 10 areas of sustainability to designate communities as sustainable places to live and work throughout Pennsylvania. Some of these items are issues the borough regularly deals with that have not been considered as a sustainability issue. So, in some sense, that checklist backs up a long-term commitment of Bellefonte to sustainability while encouraging us to do more through the cap. What does all this mean? Since sustainability is an economic issue for Bellefonte. If we are certified as a sustainable Pennsylvania community, and if we continue with the Climate Action Plan and the EAB, we could continue our work on sustainability and check off the certification designation when applying for grants. If we rescind the CAP and AB and not pass that resolution, which I know is not on the agenda this evening, but it's related, we will either need to raise local taxes for programs and projects that these state grants could have covered that we need to have here in the borough, or we will be unable to do these projects and programs due to a lack of funding. The majority of the community appears to support the Climate Action Plan and the EAB. It is a plan for economic viability and safety for the community. Voting no on the motion to eliminate the EAB and the Climate Action Plan is, in my opinion, what we should do going forward. And if you don't like the plan, we would go through, and I think we have 2 more years to see how it's working, and then go back and redo it if we need to.
I think we talked about this earlier. I appreciate your comments, but I think we talked about this earlier too, as well. And I brought it up a couple times. When we're going back to look, we're supposed to look at a 3-year plan at one point. We didn't do that. And then you say this is where we see it's overreaching. I think so, in my view. And by 2025, Bellefonte will create environmental advisory. Bellefonte will install solar energies on municipal buildings. Bellefonte will switch to 100% LED. Bellefonte will. Who's paying for that? I don't know. I haven't, unless we can get a grant for it, it's the only way we're going to pay for this stuff. And that's what bothers me about the years, because maybe Bellefonte just can't afford to do as much as what this is trying to pull out of here. That's a problem. And I really, another one is what I feel does not relate to the environment is the diversity that's called out in here. And I would rather like to see this more as a program for our residents to use and work with, rather than having, if we change something every 5 years, whatever it may be, but it should be here and not out at the county. It should be in here now. I think we had it here long enough, but at this point, I think there would have to be several changes for me to continue with this.
I have a question.
Another one is social equity. That's the other one I was looking at, because I don't see how that also contributes to climate.
How many residents do we have in Bellefonte Borough?
6,200.
How many people responded to the survey?
230 some.
So when you say a majority of the people are in favor of it, it's kind of misleading because very few people responded to the survey.
No, it's not, because when you do surveys, you don't ask the entire population. That's a census. This was a survey.
I
But is it a
understand
fact, that the majority of the Bellefonte Borough residents are in support of this? And where
The
do you get
majority of the people who surveyed, who did, and they were randomly selected.
Yeah, I know that. I'm saying, where'd you get the fact that the majority of the Bellefonte Borough, the majority of the 6,200 residents that we serve support this?
It's,
That's what
when
she's
you look at
asking.
statistics, and I'm putting on my PhD right now.
And statistics.
Right.
Ben,
When you
say
look
anything
at
you want.
statistics, and you do a survey, and you randomly select people, the majority of the people who answered the survey were from that random sampling that we did. It's basically stating that they represent the entire community.
Okay, well, that didn't make any sense to me. But speaking on behalf of my constituents, the people who voted for me, I think it's important we as Borough Council members who are casting votes leave our personal agendas out of it. Personal agendas don't serve the community, right? They serve a person. So I get it. People are passionate about certain topics. I can tell you that in my ward, where I was overwhelmingly elected, they're not in favor of this. And they probably, very, very few of them filled out a survey. And I bet if you looked at the survey, a lot of the surveys that were submitted were from a particular ward. But my comment is simply, we vote for how we think the people in our community who voted for us want us to vote. It's not a personal attack on any particular project or thing that someone's been working on. It's how we think the people who put us here want us to vote, not how we want to vote. That's a shame. That's a shame that someone would cast a vote based on their personal agenda in any elected office, right? I think we could probably all agree on that. You're elected to vote for the people who elected you. So I want you to just keep that in mind when we vote on everything at Borough Council, not just this. I've been meaning to say that for a long time. I don't know much about anything, and I don't have a PhD, and I don't know anything about surveys really, other than I understand the definition of it. And unfortunately, I'm out and about a lot, and I talk to a lot of the people. And man, oh man, are they ready for us to solve the problems that are going on in Bellefonte Borough. You know? I used to love when they asked me, Kent, when I was running for office, you know, what my ideas on infrastructure were. Infrastructure? You must be watching the news, right? We have like 2 bridges in Bellefonte. One's a footbridge, right? I mean, I'm being facetious, but I mean, what are we talking about here? We don't have the same issues that I see on the news. You know, I got email after email after email after email from people in my district asking me to not spend another breath on this. And please work on the things that are important to us as to why we put you in office. And I think that speaks volumes. I think that speaks volumes more than any survey. They didn't need a survey. They reached out to me on email, and it's just one after another. I can't even read them all. I got a guy begging me. You know, he's a single father of 2 daughters. He cannot afford to switch his house over to electricity. It's too big. And according to this survey, you know, it's questionable. Obviously, I do appreciate what Deb said about these aren't mandates, but people are reading it as, oh my God, you know, we have to change our house from this to that. I can't afford that. So they came out of the woodwork. I didn't realize it, but they did. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
But on the other hand, again, it reads like a mandate.
Sure.
And
Well,
that's how it's
they're
being.
reading it, yeah.
Yes.
That's how I read it.
And that's how I
So-
read it too.
Me too.
And I'm wondering if opinions might change if they understood that this is not a requirement, you know,
Yeah.
written in stone. And I wonder, I forgot what I wondered.
So, I mean, they're
Wandered too
using,
far, yeah.
yeah, they're using terms like forcing.
Yes.
And the plan states that
Yes.
20% of Bellefonte communities will carpool, forcing 50% of homes using coal or oil-fired furnaces to go to electric. Look, we can debate this for hours. I'm simply sharing what the people who put me here are saying about it. I thought it was important to share, so.
Maybe if it read more as like long-term goals, this is what we would really like to see instead of Bellefonte will, like you said, Bellefonte will. You know, we would love it to be that at that time, but make it more, it's more like long-term goals. I think long-term goals are good and having dates to try to get them too, but again, it's reading more as
That's what
mandates.
this was meant to be, if it's,
Yeah, it's
you
reading,
see it as a
it's reading,
mandate.
I'm strong.
I thought the survey showed a really good thing in that a lot of the people are doing like Rita does, everything they can. You know, between raising kids, paying taxes, putting gas in their car, which I don't know if anybody's done that recently, but that hurts. You know, they're doing everything they can to do the little things that you mentioned, to make this world a better place without us spending any more time on this, because they're educated. You know, they read, they understand that they want their kids to grow up in a better place. So I think it's being done. I think the survey showed that a lot of it is being done. I know that I haven't heard from any of my constituents that want this to continue, so I think I live in a pretty big district. I don't even know.
But they're not reading what they're saying.
Right,
That's the one thing
right.
we've
Some of
clarified
them,
tonight.
yeah.
And I think it's important that,
Yeah.
oh, I just had it.
Hey, Tom, you want me to move over? What's the matter?
I'm going to muzzle you.
I'm just,
What was I going to say? Oh, the grant. You know, if we approve this, the borough will receive grant money, and if it's at the gold level, we receive more grant money, so we can implement some of these changes
exactly.
without raising taxes. And that's something we have to consider too. So, in light of this new information tonight, I think we need to kind of table it for a little bit more. Maybe, no?
I'm not tabling. Oh, you can table if you want.
But I'm thinking that maybe with this new information, maybe we would have more people in favor of it, knowing that it's not going to cost them. And the committee would implement the smaller items that we could cover with the grant money. Or would we be eligible for grants every year? Or is this a one-time deal?
Oh, Don could better answer that because he's the grant expert, but grants come in all the time, and we have to apply for them. And there's, on every single grant now, and you back me up, tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, there is now a check mark on it. Do you have a Sustainable Pennsylvania certification? If yes, what level? That automatically gives extra points on your grant application. And if there's like five communities that are up at the same level, and we don't have it, and the other 4 do, and they get a couple extra points, they would get the grant and we would lose it. That's what the effect of that Sustainable PA certification does. Is that a good way to explain it?
I think what we're assuming with this too is that there's an assumption that everybody wants this. And like Kent, I've talked to enough people that don't want us to spend time on it, don't want us to spend money on it. I think the programs are great. I think education is great. I think there are a lot of good things that still can be done. But I don't think this is the way to do it.
So if it's voted down this evening, would that be the end of it, or could it be approached? I mean, would the committee be disassembled? That's the end of it?
It's what the motion says.
Well, does the Environmental Advisory Board need to go away, or just the Climate Action Plan?
That's what I was going to say. If it's voted down, or what, I think the action item says suspend. So if it is suspended, that doesn't mean that the organization can't still function outside of the borough, meaning that we would facilitate the committee, we would support it, it would still exist, it's just not supported by this borough, that's all. And when you're talking about funding for grants, yes, you're right, that does add a point or two to the application, but very little. We had that discussion before, and you even commented on it, that it was not a whole lot of difference whether we were in the LEAD program or not.
I don't know. I have no idea how many.
We voted that down, and the conversation was whether it would increase our chances for the grants, and it does, in a small amount, yes. But there are other factors that would enhance our chances of getting the grant. Like you said, Joanne, there's grants everywhere. And just because if we would not be in this climate action plan, there are other grants that you can qualify for that do the same thing. I have to agree with Kent. When I'm out and about, people don't come up to me and say, I can't wait for you guys to approve or stay in the climate action plan. Nobody has said that. They say to me, when is the light coming at Parkview Heights? What's the school doing? I look at and when I looked at this, all those projects that you relate to sustainability, we have worked hard as council members to complete some of these things. And it wasn't because of the Environmental Action Board. It was because our managers gave us guidance to get these projects completed. You related a whole bunch of stuff to the Environmental Action Board. And we can do that with a whole lot of stuff. But I was offended, quite frankly, that you were connecting all of this to the Climate Action Plan. And it does connect. But to list all the stuff you listed, I don't agree with it, that.
I have something to say about grants too. We had a grant to get those electric vehicle chargers, and look how much money that has cost us over and above what it was originally intended, and how many people are actually using it, and we still don't. I know we're working towards getting some money back for people actually using it to charge, but a lot of the people I talk to are kind of disgruntled about that too, that we put those in and, you know, the borough's footing the bill for the electricity and people aren't really, in my estimation, I don't see many people using it. I've asked other people and they don't see many people using it either. Now, I understand there are people out and about that do use it occasionally, but it's not heavily used and
Well,
I think it's been kind of a.
when we
money
installed
pit.
those, we spent very little money, none. I think it's 10% maybe
Maybe.
of the total
Yeah,
cost.
it was
We did have
almost
a
nothing.
couple repairs from lightning strikes that
Right.
happen, but I agree, we haven't recovered much of the electricity that's used, $600 to $900 a year. We're making strides to do that now.
Now that the state allows us to.
I beg your pardon?
Now that the state allows us to.
Well, they allowed it back then. Yeah, yes, a fellow resident called the PUC and asked. That it may not have been the day that you stated they didn't allow it, but that was a couple months after that. That's what I was told anyhow. Other comments? Nothing?
I do have one more. I was talking to another resident who was going to send an email with their feelings about the climate action plan, and then said, she talked to her husband and said, never mind, my husband says the borough doesn't pay any attention to our emails anyway and don't listen to public opinion. So I think that's kind of unfortunate because she was another one that was not really in favor of us continuing this, but he said, no, why bother, because they don't listen to our opinion anyway. And that's a shame.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, if there is no other discussion, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item B, baseball field grant balance. Dawn, do you want to?
I think this is the mayor.
So after our last council meeting, I reached out to Senator Jake Corman, who got the grant for us, the baseball coaches, the baseball booster club, and community members. And looking or moving forward, they all agreed that it would be a great idea. We have this beautiful baseball field now, and we have a batting cage beside it, to redo the batting cage, which would be community accessible, which people, I think I said last time, if Kent wants to go hit baseballs, there it is. He'll have a nice covered batting cage that he can use in inclement weather. I even spoke to the booster club, minimal repair with this. 8 to 10, 15 years, it might need new batting cages that the booster club would surely, look into replacing. I feel, and the people that I spoke with feel, that this would be something in the community's best interest. Yes, some understand why the field is locked, some don't. But I feel that what we need to do is move forward and find a solution to the problems. And I think something like this with the remaining money for the baseball field makes a lot of sense, and it would be community accessible.
Well, I don't understand. What is it that you're saying we would use the additional money for?
That picture.
Oh, okay. And that's,
So in baseball, you take batting practice, and there is a batting cage, which that is beside the baseball field right now. It's old, it's dilapidated, it's falling down. This would be something that would be provided for people to practice the skills of baseball. It would be open to the community since the field is currently locked. And it doesn't have to be this exact one. Coach Clark and I met, and this is a picture of one we found. There's one in Du Bois that is absolutely beautiful, and it gets used by the community all the time.
Mayor, how much money do we have left over?
It's 150, after you all pass the final invoice tonight, there'll be about $152,000 left in the grant.
Thank you.
How much would something like that cost? Do you have an idea?
Probably 100 plus, depending on how you do it, it would probably be the majority of that, I think, Don. Would you say so?
I think. We don't have an estimate at this point.
I
Rita,
was just
we're
wondering if you had an idea of how much it might cost.
Right.
What's the school district share?
Did Ken B never get back to you and meet with anybody?
No.
Me either. I can't answer that on behalf of the school district.
What kind of maintenance would be required for this, and do you kind of close it down over winter, or is it just open over winter?
Generally, which I'm not, if I was in charge of this facility in the winter months, say, we get some mild days in November, probably December, January, February. My idea would be you would take the nets and you would lift them up to save them, and then you would pull them back down. It's covered, so you can hit in the rain.
And that's an artificial turf?
Yeah, that would be the wish to be artificial turf, probably, I don't know, guessing 30 by 30. Other people have used different things, but something like that. And this particular one that we're looking at looks to be 3 cages. We would be looking to add 1 more cage, which would be 2. So it would just double the size of the one that is there now. And it would be accessible to the community to use.
So if we're using that, how, somebody does a pop-up and hits the roof, or is there a cage, or
There's a net
netting up there?
Yep, there's a net on the top as well.
I can't see it, but
Yep.
goes in with the sides.
Yeah, but as far as maintenance, it's fairly maintenance-free. A rake to rake, if it was turf, to rake up the pebbles.
You could run your green scrubber in there.
You could, 2 swipes and but yeah, I would say hand
How's the
rakes.
work going with the grant money? What are our options? Do we have options? We got a grant for a baseball field.
The grant
We
was a
have
marketing and tourism grant, and it was, I think the total amount was 1.15.
But we have leftover.
And we have $150,000 left and it's pretty much for construction, so that was what the primary line item was, construction.
At our discretion for whatever we feel. I mean, the batting cage makes sense at a baseball field.
I have a comment on that, because I did look at some of this. The field looks great. I think this is a great idea. I also looked at the restrooms, and I know they are more than due to be replaced. And I think having this wonderful facility and having very poor bathrooms, I don't know how old they are, but they definitely need replaced. And I'm wondering if this is great, but should we think more about our infrastructure and try to do new bathrooms there?
I thought we built a new bathroom up there, about
There's
4 or
one
5
down
years
by
ago?
the entrance.
At the entrance of the park, there's a new bathroom.
The bathroom that serves the ball field area is old, needs replaced.
Yeah, the new one is down by the picnic area as you come in, is
Right
that
as you
correct?
come in, yes.
Okay, that was not one there, and we added that
There
one? We upgraded it?
was one there, we redid
Okay,
it.
I remember that one.
Renovated it, yes.
Okay.
But the one up by the ball field is really
So
in
I
bad
guess
shape.
what you're saying is when you look at the big picture, new restrooms would probably be,
That's what I would think. I mean, I'm
Service
all for
everybody.
all these things,
Yeah, yeah.
but that services everybody. I know we have a lot of activity out there in the summertime, in addition to baseball, and I think part of having all this is having good facilities and good infrastructure too, and that's kind of been my focus.
How much did that, the redo or rehab of the ADA accessible bathroom down at the bottom of the Governor's Park cost?
Well, it was approximately 85,000, but we did it with a lot of in-house labor.
So,
We did.
and so it's possible that this money could be used for that instead, or is there enough to do both this and that? Because I agree with Barb that having facilities when you really need to go would be a very good
You're
idea.
bringing in these sports teams
That's
and their
exactly right.
families.
Yep. And we want them to be happy, and we want them to come back, and that's a very important part of it.
I don't think there's enough money to do both. I mean, there'll be some debt or some extra money that would need to go to do both. Just thinking of about 100,000 for the restrooms and over 100 for that, there's not enough money.
Unless
We do a fundraiser? So we can-
Well, that's sort of why I was asking what the school district's
Yeah,
share
what
is
about
in
the
this.
Booster Club
You know-
money? I don't expect you to answer for them, but
Yeah.
is that a possibility, that they help out? I don't know. I don't know the workings of that.
Right,
I
yeah,
would like to see it all happen, quite honestly.
Absolutely, I would as well. I would have to reread the grant that we submitted. I know, speaking with Senator Corman, I don't believe it was, no offense to anybody, provided to redo bathrooms in the park. It was provided to upgrade the facilities that are adjacent to the baseball field, which is why I think this was the option that everybody was looking at.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know how that reads.
Being in education, I don't know if, we have CPI. Have we ever joined with CPI? That would be a great project to redo the bathrooms.
We have.
Bathrooms
I
and
mean,
or this.
That's something that could be looked at. So, yeah, that's, after last meeting, I'm one to try and move forward to see how we can solve multiple problems. Yes, I wasn't happy that the field is locked, but I understand that's the wish, to have the field locked. And in my mind, this was a perfect way to add something for the community to use. If you go to the Little League fields, there are always people there. And as you grow and get older, I don't have to speak for that. There's people who want to use that. There's people playing basketball at the park. And you're absolutely right. I use that restroom. It is functional. Is it the Taj Mahal of restrooms? Nope.
It's not even close.
No, it's not. But at the same,
That's why we're bringing these tournaments in. You want to have something there for the people to use that's half decent, don't you?
I agree. All I'm saying is, it was my impression that the grant was given to make an upgrade to the Governor's Park baseball field.
Well, this facilitates the baseball field. If you
So
can't
does
stretch
that.
that, well, yeah, but that's for a certain group. The restrooms service everybody. And that's what we have, a community park. And when you have ball tournaments, I would want to have a pretty nice facility for restrooms.
So why hasn't there been one before this point?
No money.
Okay, so Senator Corman gets money to upgrade the baseball field. If he wanted, why didn't anybody go to Senator Corman and say, can I have a grant to redo the bathrooms in the park?
Because the school district was partly responsible for the ball field.
I know, you always go back to the school
Well,
district.
they won't come to
I
the
went out
table.
on a limb to get this grant to improve the
Whoa,
baseball
whoa, whoa,
facilities,
whoa, whoa.
and that's what I'm trying to do with this. If you all want to do this, great. If you want to do a bathroom, great. But you and I don't see eye to eye on this project very much. Okay, and that's why I was offended last time, because there was obviously talks that didn't include me about this project.
What project? The ball field?
Yes, sir.
I didn't talk about it.
I know better than that. Okay? So this is what I proposed, because last time we said the field is locked, the community can't use the field. I came up with this idea to present that would be something that the community can use with the extra money that Senator Corman got for the baseball field. Okay? I agree there should be a nice bathroom. Somebody can reach out to Senator Dush and say, can you give us a grant to redo the bathrooms? And hopefully he says yes. I reached out to Jake Corman to get new facilities for the baseball field. This is something that would add so the community could use it, because you were very adamant that the community cannot use the field. So this is what I came up with. You can approve it or disapprove it, and I'm just the mayor. I don't get a vote. I talk to the people, it'll be used. That's my idea. So, take it or leave it.
I like that idea of adding a batting cage. I think that's a good use for that money, considering it was for baseball facilities.
I don't think anybody doesn't think the batting cages are a good idea. You know, you're obviously passionate about it, Mr. Mayor, so that's good. But we're not making a decision right now, so I've not seen the bathrooms. So, do we have extra time to talk about more of this? Or
Sure.
Do we have anything else on the? I mean, it seems like maybe the management can weigh in here a little bit, because I just can't believe that this is continuing. But it seems like the locking of the baseball field is a touchy subject. Does anybody from the Bellefonte Borough management have an opinion on whether or not we should be locking this baseball field after hours? And if so, why, or maybe we don't need to, or what's the, I personally don't understand it, so I was just hoping somebody else from the borough has an idea of why this is done and what's going on.
We've talked about this many work sessions. We're protecting the asset. It was over $1 million, about $1 million put into the ball field. You have to have special shoes, number one. We had people jumping the fence and putting a generator on the field. No supervision whatsoever, and there was an adult involved. So beyond that, every 10 hours, you have to maintain the field. Go in, sprinkle the rubber dust is what I call it, to even out where people walk on the field, those kinds of things.
Those are Bellefonte employees have to do that? Is that what? Okay.
Yes, right now. During the season, the school district paid for a maintenance of the field during the season. We have conveyed that there's no agreement or no relationship for after season, as far as who's on the field, how's it going to be maintained, so right now, all we do is we cut the outfield grass, and that's it. Now, if somebody comes in for a tournament, which we get paid for, we send out the maintenance guy, so it doesn't cost us anything. The practice or people getting on the field would cost us something, because there has to be maintenance, and there's no agreement with the school district or anybody, so it'd fall to the taxpayers to pay for the maintenance. We have said from day one, there was great grant money to redo the field. There's zero grant money to maintain the field. Any cost falls to the taxpayers. As we've tried to convey, the Parks Fund, which is a real estate tax fund, barely breaks even each year, barely breaks even. So we have said a couple years ago, we'd start charging for tournaments, at least have some kind of revenue when tournaments come in. So we've maintained that, but as Mr. Johnson, Council President, has said, the school district from day one really has fallen short on their part of the agreement to maintain the field prior to any renovations. They did some work, but not very much. So we have an issue with who's going to maintain what, how much money, if anything's going to be set aside for its replacement. What happens if there's damage to the field? Who pays? They told us very clearly at the training for how to take care of the field, there's certain things under warranty, and there's a lot that's not under warranty. If it's not maintained properly, or it's vandalized, or it's damaged accidentally, it's on us as taxpayers. So we've tried to convey that there is a concern. Other turf fields that we did research on were all locked They all had policies on when they're used and who uses them. None of them were open to the public. So we've conveyed that back to council. I don't, that's where we left off. I understand we were trying to get a meeting ASAP with the school district. Everybody's correct. We have not heard back from the school district on their end. But I anticipate a meeting at some point and try to get a new agreement or a resurrected agreement that we can work with, and we know who's paying for what.
So there's been more than recent problems
Yes.
with communication between the school district
Yes.
and the borough.
Yes.
It wasn't specifically anyone, it's just been from the borough
Yes.
and the school district. There's a breakdown.
There is when it comes to maintaining this field.
And it's, all of this is common sense to all of us who've been around for a while. Like, obviously, the school district is stretched thin, finding maintenance guys to go over, just to keep up with grass mowing of all the properties is ridiculous, let alone a new baseball field.
Right.
We get that, I understand that, so that's, I'm sure, a big part of it. But that was interesting that you said that all of the fields are locked. I mean, it isn't like we just came up with this idea.
No, we checked.
This is
out,
something that, due to,
other artificial turf fields that were installed regionally all had policies about use. There was nothing open to the general public.
all right. That's a sticking point.
Yes.
All right. When are we getting that traffic light? Seriously, I'm tired of answering that question.
You want to do the MO, is that it? More
That's it.
discussion? Any other comments? Okay, we'll move to item C, the MOU. We have about 6 minutes.
Okay. Well, let me just say that this came to us, the borough, through Rodney Beard, who's working with the stage at Talleyrand Committee. And we wanted you to look at it. I think we're going to have some executive sessions to work out the borough's language side of things. Some of you have been here when this whole concept started. Others are new to it. I see some things that are not in the agreement that were mentioned early on, such as an operating fund. We talked about the ball field. One thing that was very clearly conveyed to this group is who's going to maintain it, same exact language or questions. And they said, don't worry, there's going to be an operating fund, of money set aside to pay for everything. So there's not one word in the agreement. Mr. Brackbill, when he was president, and I met with the group, a couple members of the group, probably a year or so ago, and we questioned the footprint. And they were very unhappy that we questioned the footprint of the band. They called it a band shell. And now we get an agreement, or we get a MOU that has a big red rectangle about half of the expanded area of Talleyrand Park, saying that's the area that will be under lease. It's half of the figure 8 all the way to the edge of Route 150. So there's something we're missing, or we're not on the same page as far as, my concerns are. I'm sure there's other things I noted, but those are two of the bigger ones that we need to talk about or put in any kind of an agreement.
So I think I can agree with you there.
Okay.
Because when I looked through the memorandum and the
Yes.
lease,
Yes.
and the one thing that went out as a red light to me is this 27-year lease with no renewal, and at the end of 27 years, we get the building and the maintenance and all the property, and that's not what I thought we had agreed to.
That's an example. None of that was ever talked about. It's actually 29 years, but there's nothing, we never talked about that, you know. There's a lot of conditions where if they don't pay, we pay.
And then moves that 27 years to like 5 years.
Exactly. And that's why we asked that money be set aside, so we have a comfort level that this thing's not going to default. The other thing is, we know that if you're drawing revenue, you pay taxes, such as the subway building that we rent out. They're thinking that they don't have to pay taxes, but we can clarify that. But if it's a revenue generating situation, which they're doing performances, they're collecting money, I don't know how it wouldn't be, but they're going to be charged taxes, and they want those to be prorated if they are charged, and that's never been talked about. So I'm just a quick review that there's concerns from the discussions way back when till now. There's some things that are not quite the same.
So just, I'm devil's advocate for just a second.
Sure.
Do you think they might be talking about the LERTA?
No,
Okay.
no, they would be exempt from LERTA. It's our property. They're not talking about LERTA. There's not one word in there about LERTA.
I don't think they're renovating an existing.
Yeah, they're building a new building.
Yeah.
So it's nothing about that.
Okay.
There was nothing in this document that indicated whether or not it was for the structure itself and the parking lot or a portion of the park itself. And this, looking at Exhibit A that has the big red
Yes,
trapezoid on it.
yes.
It looks as if they are including basically a third of the annex at Talleyrand, which is a public open space and is used for community events. I was thinking specifically the Outdoor Expo.
Yes.
That uses this area, and are they implying or suggesting that they would have exclusive use of that area? And it's very
The way it's worded, the
nondescriptive.
way the MOU is worded, the red, whatever it is their leased area. That's it. So to answer your question, it looks like they would have exclusive control. I mean, the way it's worded, it looks to me like that's how you would interpret it.
And it's kind of an arbitrary line across the grass. It doesn't even go out to like a distinctive part of the, it doesn't encompass a boundary that would be enclosed by the sidewalk. It's just, it doesn't make much sense.
No. Like I said, when Mr. Brackbill and I questioned even the size of the rendering, they were offended, because we talked about a small band shell. We went to Hollidaysburg to look at their park band shell, which was like a kit you can buy. It was probably about $100,000. We thought that's what they wanted, and that would work. And then it kept growing, and we had a meeting with them, and of course they were very offended that we would question how big things got.
I think there are a lot of unanswered questions.
Okay, but again, we wanted you to put it in front of you, wanted you to start reading it and listing your questions. I think we want to discuss it, because I think we're going to boil down to an agreement where, before dirt is moved, X, Y, Z has to happen. The worst case scenario was one, we don't want to have a default, have this expensive building fall to the taxpayers. And secondly, we don't want to take down a building to build this, and then this doesn't happen, So you got to have all the ducks in a row.
Do we have 2 minutes to do the very last one? Because I have just one question.
Here's the latest on that. The requester has withdrawn, so there's no, that topic is really off.
We don't
as of
have a D
today.
anymore, it's gone.
Yeah, as of today. There's another organization looking at some type of housing, but doesn't need a variance, doesn't need amendments. So that's why it was withdrawn.
Okay.
Thank you. Sure.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Stewart? All All right, I think we can adjourn the work session now. I'm going to call the Monday, August 21st, Bellefonte Borough Council business meeting to order. First of all, I'd like to have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I have a roll call, please, Mr. Stewart?
Yes, Mr. Veneer,
Here.
Mr. Brackville.
Here.
Ms. Cleaton.
Here.
Ms. Dan.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Present.
Ms. McKean.
Here.
Ms. Purnell.
Here.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Here.
Ms. Tosti Vasey.
I'm here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Okay, additions to the council meeting agenda. In accordance with Act 65 of 2021, in a matter that is not on the agenda, council may take official action on it with the following exception. Council can act on matters relating to potential or real emergencies. Council may add a matter of agency business to its agenda through a majority vote. The council must state why the action item is being added to the agenda. Council may vote to add an action item or items to this agenda. Is there any items? Yes, Joanne?
I have two,
Okay.
maybe one and possibly two. I'd like to add a motion to vacate the portion of the right-of-way on West Lamb Street, either immediately following the public hearing or during the old and current business section of the
Motion.
meeting. There's no motion is listed on the agenda. And I would have expected either an emotion or something saying why we weren't voting on it this evening, because this request came in over a year ago. We have a public hearing this evening on vacating. So
Okay.
I think it might be nice to just have the vote immediately after the public hearing is closed, but if not, then we put it down under the...
You have to vote on that.
Yeah. So,
So that's the first one.
okay, so do we, that's your
That's
motion?
that's what the first
Do we have a
motion.
second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Do we want a roll call vote? Aye.
Cornell. Wait a second.
No? It's
Okay.
approved.
The second, I think this is mostly a confusion. There, in the packet, there was a report about bottling water.
Yes.
That was presented in 2018, has a new, it's listed in the packet as a new business item. Are we supposed to be doing something, or is that just
This-
something for background information?
Background, that was background information to the sustainability project that
Okay.
they're proposing
Okay,
for
then
us.
that resolves my
Okay,
question.
all right. So only one addition to the agenda. Okay, and we voted on that and approved it?
Yeah.
So we're good to go. Right now, I'm going to ask the mayor, we're going to skip a little bit for a presentation. Mayor Buddy?
Thank you.
Yep.
Could I have the Bellefonte baseball coaches and players please come up? I have a proclamation to read before I start. I hope you guys realize how much pride and spirit you brought to the community of Bellefonte and beyond, to the state of Pennsylvania and beyond. I'm an extremely proud mayor of Bellefonte, and when I was at the state championship game, to look around and see our community come together, to see what you boys and you coaches did.
Mayor,
is
you might
real
want to turn
touching.
that, rotate them?
Yeah.
So that they're looking into the camera?
So, you guys can all come right here.
There you
I have
go.
a proclamation to read. Proclamation, whereas the Borough of Bellefonte congratulates the Bellefonte Area School District Boys Varsity Baseball Team for becoming the 2023 PIAA Class 4A State Champions. And whereas the Bellefonte Area School District's Boys Varsity Baseball Team, the Red Raiders, through hard work and perseverance, through 25 hard-fought games, became the 2023 Class 4A State Champions. The Red Raiders take great pride in respecting their opponents and playing the game of baseball with class and dignity. And whereas the demanding athletic competition requires high levels of skill, determination, teamwork, scholastic achievement, and focus on selfless commitment to others. And whereas these 22 outstanding high school players, Logan Avelis, Josh Brown, Jake Corman, Dominic Caparella, Parker Caparella, Alexander Ebling, Nate Fisher, Ryan Fraley, Isaac Dahl, Tristan Heckman, Nash Irwin, Trevor Johnson, Braden Kormanik, Reese McCloskey, Felix Okendo, Levi Purnell, Kenneth Squires, Caleb Stock, Ethan Tomasacci, Peyton Vankus, and Mason Weaver have represented themselves, their families, their school, and their community proudly. And whereas this team is coached by head coach John Clark with the assistance of coaches Drew Bryan, Adam Gearhart, Rick Hall, Nick Caparell, and Dylan Young, student managers Adeline Los and Delilah Hockenberry, and athletic trainers Dimitri Probst and Kelsey Rote. And now, therefore, I, Buddy Johnson, Mayor of Bellefonte, do hereby recognize Bellefonte Area School District's Boys Varsity Baseball Team for its extraordinary achievements of becoming the 2023 PIAA Class 4A State Champions. We salute your hard work and wish you continued success in the upcoming seasons. Coach, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you like to say anything?
Absolutely. Just to the council, everything that happened this year with our field, everything that happened with our field this year and our playing surface up there and everything that was done in the very short time frame and everyone coming together to make sure these boys and the community have a fine place to play. We appreciate it, and thank you all for all your efforts and support for the program as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Buddy.
request, my wife is gonna take a picture if you don't mind.
You want them up here, buddy?
Everything?
You want them up here in front of this?
Yeah, that'd be great if you don't mind.
No, we don't want to.
It's gonna work.
I don't know. Go on. Here, go right here in the middle. Yeah. Yep. Just watch the gold.
That's why we took over
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks, guys.
You write that motion down because
Yes, I mean,
We'll go.
put it on your old business.
It's going to be right after the public hearing.
Remind me.
Okay, we'll move to item 5, public comment. The officers of the council have decided to try combining the agenda and non-agenda public comment. The public comment period is for oral comments regarding any action items listed on this meeting agenda or any comments in general. There's no deliberation will be entered into by council at this time. If you haven't signed in, please sign in. Come to the podium and state your name and address and which item you're speaking about. We have quite a few people here tonight, so we want to limit those comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. And Mr. Halderman will be running the timer for that 3 minutes. And he will give you a 1-minute warning and then a 30-second warning. So we want to try to keep the meeting on time if we can. So if there's somebody from the audience that would like to come to the podium, now's the time to do it, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Erin Trova. I live on 129 East Lynn Street, the house that just got painted. So I'm going to be talking about the Environmental Advisory Board and Climate Action Plan item. I would like to submit my comments in support of the plan. As a member of the public, I'm also an environmental social scientist and a rural community scientist. I know that a lot of grant money is coming in to support projects like this that I think will support the citizens of Bellefonte in the types of things that, as members of public service, we can all appreciate will serve the members of our community. I think a lot of people who do struggle with, you know, taking care of their families and paying the electric bill and having the types of things that their basic needs met also align with environmental and climate related items. They might not be on the surface level, but they are under the surface. So I appreciate actually connecting goals that the community already has and that you've already established. For example, with the fleet, you have to have a fleet. So how do we integrate these different goals with climate and sustainability in a way that serves our rural communities, our, you know, metropolitan, urban communities, all these types of communities have grant funding available for them, and the ones that we can seek to get and achieve, I hope that we can, you know, seek the grants that are available to support those items. And I think that might be all I need to say. I just wanted to say that those types of money that are also for climate and sustainability have the opportunity to improve the quality of the lives of people in Bellefonte. So I think that even though the language of the plan maybe says will, I think it's not a mandate, it's not report, it's not, so there's no enforceability to it. So I understand that people might be upset about it, but I hope that it can, that as a council we can work towards achieving the goals that I think will make the lives of everybody better. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Others?
My name's Nancy Hall. I live at 176 East Lynn Street. I feel like I attended this meeting 50 years ago. when I first moved to Bellefonte, and everybody was in a panic mode because the hysterical review board was going to tell us what color we could paint our house. The hysterical review board was going to tell us how we could make our house look, what we could plant, what we could do. I've lived here for years, and the hysterical review board has never told me what color to paint my house. I think that's the same kind of hysteria I'm hearing tonight when we talk about the sustainability plan that the borough has been working on. Nobody's talking about mandating anything. I am a certified sustainability property certified by UNESCO. I just installed a brand new high-efficiency gas furnace because that was the most viable option for me after 6 months of research and no heat in my house in February, March, and April. Nobody's talking about mandating. We just all need to learn what we can individually do the best possible way. I could get rid of my gas lawnmower and buy an electric one. That was feasible. But solar panels just weren't an option for me. You know, we all need your help to support this committee and continue to provide education and resources to the members of the community. We need you to go back to your neighborhoods and help to break down the hysteria. That's all it is, hysteria. People reacting hysterically to things they don't understand. It's your job not just to listen to them, but to give them information back and really educate them on what the Sustainability Committee would really like to do for the community and how much more money it can bring into the community to make things happen in a positive way without changing our tax dollars. I am not worried about being mandated and told what I need to do because I know you all have a whole lot more sense than that. For one thing, I so appreciate, I don't agree with you, but I appreciate the fact that every single one of you is here tonight because I don't have to sit in that chair. And it is not an easy job. No matter what your position is, no matter what your opinions are, it is not an easy job and I don't want it. But please, go back to your neighborhoods, go back to your electorates, and explain to them what you've learned tonight and what this committee is really trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Hey, Jason. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
My name is Jason Moser. I live at 602 East Lynn Street here in Bellefonte. Sitting here this evening, I heard several council members express some concerns over the Climate Action Plan, the Environmental Advisory Board, and have some questions regarding it. That's the agenda item I'm speaking to, by the way. I'm not. I can't think of a better reason to maintain both, to address the questions and clarify the plans and goals of the Climate Action Plan and the Environmental Advisory Board when there are questions around them. That doesn't strike me as an opportunity to end such programs when there is some confusion around it or when there maybe is some clarity that needs to be brought out from those programs. The climate issues that we are experiencing today are not going away anytime soon, and new technologies are evolving annually, daily sometimes, new things are coming out to help address climate and sustainability issues, providing ample opportunity to educate both the Borough Council and the public at large. And it would be a wonderful opportunity to continue those programs. Thankfully, Bellefonte has escaped a lot of the catastrophic climate issues that we face so far. We did have a tornado warning a few weeks ago. It wasn't the first in our history, but we certainly had it. We saw earlier this spring and summer Sandy Ridge have a wildfire. Yes, that was initially caused by humans, but dry conditions helped exacerbate that wildfire in Sandy Ridge for a few days on the western edge of the county. But we've largely escaped that. But we have a great opportunity with the Climate Action Plan and the Environmental Advisory Board to address, educate, and get community involvement and participation so that we are all aware and can respond to emergencies or as technologies catch up, reduce costs for both the borough and residents without raising taxpayer dollars. Having this board and a plan to at least set targets, not mandates, helps keep focus on these issues that aren't going away. I can appreciate that serving in public service is not always a thankful job and can be a difficult one. So I do thank you all for the thoughtful comments you all shared this evening. That you're able to have that discussion is really appreciated as well. And I can't think of a better opportunity at this time to come together support the Climate Action Plan and the Environmental Advisory Board because of the questions that are out there among several members of the council. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Si-Wing Yu, and I live in 624 East Howard Street in the North Ward. So when I heard some council members say that their constituents don't like the climate action plan, I was like, I better come up here and say something. Well, I believe in the value of having a climate action plan. I think it's a good way to have a document, be organized, so that as a constituent I can look to it as a reference of what I can do to make my life a bit more sustainable here. And it sounds like from the discussion earlier that you had, it's more of a wording issue or a communication issue, more so than having a plan that has the ideals of having a more sustainable future for our constituents. So I would suggest maybe, I don't know, maybe you've worked on this a long time and that's why it's so frustrating and you just want to get rid of the plan. But as a constituent, I find the value of having this plan, and I would prefer if you take some time to maybe wordsmith it, make it sound less like a mandate, which is a bit of a fearful thing for people to read, and have it be more reflective of the ideals of sustainability rather than, something scary for people. In everything that we do in our work and in relationships and such, we're supposed to adaptively manage. That's something I do in my work as a biologist. Something goes wrong and you just have to adapt to it. So I think rather than getting rid of something, maybe treat it as a living document and refer back to it and just work on it. It doesn't have to sound like a mandate that's scary, that's kind of top-down approach. It can be more of a document that is adapted over time that we can look up to. So that's my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi there. Nancy Perkins, Curtin Street in Bellefonte. I am in the North Ward, so Rita and Doug are my reps.
And Kent.
Okay, sorry. So on record, I support the Climate Action Plan and the Environmental Action, the other committee. I think it's important that we be in the game and we be networked. So if we have an entity and if it needs modification, we need to work on that as opposed to just exiting and then not having anything that we can build around. And a lot of work's been done so far. Joanne listed all the accomplishments. I think, they're outstanding and we just have to keep going. I see the environment here as our best asset. And we live in a beautiful community with the environment. If I wanted to be living with bad air and poor quality, I'd move back to Chicago. But I'm here because it's a great environment. So we need to protect it and build on it. So I hope you'll all work together to keep these programs in place and just build on it and modify them as you see fit and help us, educate us. I would like to get into the solar panel arena on my garage perhaps, but I need some guidance on how to do that. So whatever council can do to help the community to know where to go, what are the procedures, who's had some success with it. I know Joanne has, but that's a big project. And that might be scary for some people, but we need some guidance on how to do that. And I think that helps. And it's also something we can talk about as a community, because when people make decisions about where do they want to live, they look at what goes on here, and I think that that's important that we be out there with addressing the issues that we know are there. And we just have to do it in a smart way. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Others? Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
My name is Mike Scott. I'm the president of Downtown Bellefonte, Inc.
Wanted to work with council to have a location approved for our Under the Lights event. Some of you may be aware of. We've gotten a lot of people questioning whether we're having it this year or not. We're kind of late in the game. Just because we had some turnover in our organization, and we initially submitted an application on August 2nd for the location at the parking lot on the corner of Spring and Cherry. We were informed that that was not an ideal location because of a streetscape that's happening. Totally understandable. Our plan B is to work with your group to have the raceway approved. The date we're looking at is October 21st. 20th. You see, that's why I'm not here by myself.
You're doing great.
Yeah, and we're both new to the process here, candidly, so just wondering what we have to do, what would be the next step for us to get a formal approval from this group?
We'll send you a new application. All we got to do is check to see if make sure there's no other events or reservations for the raceway on that date. That's 99% of it. Then we can have it. We can work with you to approve it. We can do that administratively.
Okay. Yeah. I think.
By the way, I'm Kathleen.
Sorry.
I'm the new community and programming manager for Downtown Bellefonte, Inc. Earlier today, I did resubmit a revised application with that same date and time. We're not requesting any road closures. The only thing we're requesting are the parking meters on the park side of the street to be closed off so that we can utilize that for.
We'll take a look at it and probably be in touch within a couple of days so you can start getting word out and everything.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Yeah, but being in the park is much easier than closing streets and everything, so that's pretty easy.
So for our knowledge in the future, we would work with borough staff to go through the approval process?
We recently changed the process so that is possible, so yes. Now, there's a few particulars where we do bring it back to council, such as street closures, possibly if we think, maybe the alcohol issue is a bigger issue, especially being outside the park. We may bring some things back to council, but most of it we should be able to do through staff.
Okay.
So.
Excellent. Great. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Others? Okay. We're going to move on to communications then. You want to?
Sure. First one is from Center County Recycling Refuse Authority. It's 2 of the monthly reports for July and August. They're just there as informational. Next item is from West Penn Power in regard to their community tree program. It's geared towards nonprofits and the municipal government here as far as obtaining free trees. There's programs and details.
Could we post this on our website and send it out via Facebook? Secondly, like we did with the Bright Cities grant, is this something that we can take advantage of to add more trees in the right-of-ways? And then maybe send this out to like the Sierra Club and others that deal with tree environments?
We can do as much as possible. I think West Penn is doing some of what you're talking about. As far as street trees, these are tiny saplings. They're not suitable for what we would call a street tree. It's a sapling or in a little dish or a bulb root sapling. So
They're very small.
very tiny. So that's the type of tree.
So they might be my flowering dogwood that ended up being a blueberry.
Could be, but we do plan to.
Because it was little.
Certainly do certain specifications for the trees that go in the right of way. But keep in mind, it's geared towards, I think, nonprofits and municipal governments. But we can certainly post the information.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think getting the information out in any way possible to the community, particularly the nonprofits, would be helpful.
Yes. Next item, we had as a letter in your materials about signage, specifically no trucks around the West Bishop Street. There's some other issues related, no trucks, no turning around type of thing, or no outlet. To something to that effect. Some concerns that were listed in the letter from the owners of a business in that area. So we've just suggested that staff could review that, look at some options, and possibly schedule this at a work session, bring it back. So we listed as no action.
Sounds like a plan. Staff can look at it,
Yes.
give us a recommendation.
So meanwhile, I think Mr. Bonner, if he hasn't already been told about the new revision in the street ordinances, because that may resolve some of the issues that I saw in the letter, and that, and then have him invited to the discussion for the work
Yes,
session.
we can do that, certainly, sure.
Didn't we discuss some alternate signage as part of the
Yes.
We
Spring
did.
Street
And that-
program as far as where trucks are going to be able to park and unload?
We did, but we didn't change any parking spaces yet. I think, now's a great time to look at that and get something worked in.
Incorporated into this project?
Yes. So that's that one. As you have seen in your packets, materials, there was letters regarding the climate action plan, comments on that, so we just grouped them together and put them in there for your review. The next item, is Spring Creek Watershed Commission. I did send everybody a copy of their 2024 budget, their meeting dates. We listed that as a non-action item for this evening. There's an increase proposed. We'll be soon, next month, from next month till December, working on our budget. So we can look at when to schedule some time to discuss that. You okay?
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
The next item is a letter from West Penn Power in regard to the day's request to vacate a portion of West Lamb Street. West Penn Power, primarily owns the poles, although there's two other utilities on the poles, are saying, and as essentially they cannot give up this right away because they have wires above or overhead. So that's there. We may reference that when we get into the public hearing, but you get that from West Penn Power. The next item is a request for a donation to support Harrisburg's Poets Workshops for Bellefonte youth. I did, knowing that this was came in as correspondence, I did look through the borough code. It's my opinion that we're not permitted under the borough code to donate or be a sponsor or a contributor to that type of organization.
Could I make a motion that we advertise this event on our website for them, so that at least they get some more publicity, if we can't do any funding?
If council approves it, we'll do it. We generally don't do that, because when you say yes to one, you gotta say yes to everybody. We pretty much keep it to borough business for the most part. That's with some minor tweaks maybe, but we generally do not relink, or we do not promote items that way. If you folks want to do it, or if you approve a motion, we'll do it. Or if you folks want to individually do it, you're more than welcome to.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to advertise and see what happens.
I don't think we have that on the agenda.
Well, it says,
Okay.
may consider action.
All right, you're good. We're good then. I just want to make sure.
Is there a second to that motion? Hearing none, the motion has failed, Joanne.
There's like an informational update on the Safe Routes to Parks work that's been done for a few months now here in Bellefonte. So again, it's just for your review. We mentioned it as no action this evening. I did notice there was a flyer, but not listed on the agenda. There's no action, but it's a Pennsylvania DEP notice about electric vehicle workshops, primarily for municipal officials. Like if you want to know how the programs work, or like questions we have had last several months, you can go to these workshops. There's in-person workshops as well as virtual workshops coming up. So take a look at that if you're interested. I think that's all under written communications.
Yep. Any other comments for written communications? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. This, you're going to have to help me with this, Mr. Stewart.
Sure.
Public hearing request to vacate portion of West Lamb Street right-of-way.
Sure, we can, I think we can do that. Sometimes council will do a motion to open the hearing and a motion to close the hearing.
Okay.
You want to do it that way, or you just want to bring people
Sure,
to
I
testify?
can make a motion. Or I'm asking for a motion to open the hearing, the public hearing, to request to vacate a portion of West Lamb Street right-of-way. Mr. Bernier made a motion.
Second.
Barbara seconded. Okay. Somebody would like to speak.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Michael Lewandowski. I am an attorney at the law firm of Miller, Kistler, and Campbell here in Bellefonte, and I represent Nathaniel and Maria Day, who are the owners and residents of the property at 203 North Thomas Street, which is the corner of North Thomas Street and West Lamb Street. Does everyone have a copy of the petition? I
think previously they received it.
Oh,
It's
you all
been
have
some
it,
time.
okay. So the petition's pretty straightforward. If you go back to the original plan for this part of the borough from 1924.
Not to interrupt you, but we have a map up there.
Okay. What it is Lamb Street is supposed to be 50 feet wide, but for whatever reason, where it adjoins the Day's property, it's slightly wider. And in the survey that was attached to our petition, it is precisely 9.75 feet wider. And as you can see, the boundary line, the actual boundary line, the red line, is basically the side of the Day's house. And so what the Days are requesting of council, and Mrs. Day is here should anyone have any questions, is to vacate that 9.75 feet of Lamb Street, so that Lamb Street will be 50 feet wide as it is everywhere else along that part of the borough. And primarily how this arose, if anyone is curious, is the Days are seeking to put mostly a decorative fence in their property, but they are unable to because of this sort of ambiguity as to where their property line is. In reference to the West Penn Power, we did receive a copy of that, and the Days are agreeable in principle to granting a private right-of-way to West Penn Power. I've tried to reach out to them to get paperwork and haven't gotten a response yet, but as soon as we receive that, like I said, they're not going to ask them to remove the power lines there. We just need to see what the paperwork is. So, does anyone have any questions for either myself or Mrs. Day?
Seems like a pretty reasonable request.
So you're waiting for a response from West Penn?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And
So could we create a conditional motion if West Penn approves?
I don't know how you want to take testimony, but I see the West Penn Power letter as a problem for the borough giving this or abandoning or vacating this right away. West Penn Power is saying they do not wish to give up anything, but they would take a private right away. I don't know what that means because the lines are there. On top of West Penn Power, there's Comcast and Verizon, cable and telephone. No matter what, the lines are there, they're overhead. Nobody's in, West Penn Power said they're not giving anything up. I don't know, moving outside of that, obviously the Days can do whatever on their property. So I don't understand what they mean by private right of way, but they clearly said they're not giving up that right of way. That's a concern. I don't know how, if we have given up paper street right-of-ways where there's zero utilities. This is different. This has utilities in the right-of-way. I personally would not recommend vacating that primarily because there's at least 3 utilities overhead. I don't know the ramifications, but I don't see how we could give something up that West Penn Power, Verizon, and Comcast is overhead in the right-of-way. And the only other thing I would say is our records show a 60-foot right-of-way for the street. Maybe at one point it went down to 50, Maybe they didn't list the 10-foot right-of-way, I don't know, but Matt Almer, Public Works Director, has found 60 feet listed as the right-of-way, which makes sense. 50 feet for the street, 10 feet for the West Penn Power Utility right-of-way. So I'm just throwing that in as the borough staff's thoughts on this. This is different than a paper street. It has 0 utilities. This has utilities.
If I could respond.
Sure.
As I mentioned, the days are agreeable to granting a private right-of-way or easement to West Penn Power and any other utility company that may be on the pole, which would alleviate those concerns. I can't speak to what's in the borough records for the rest of Lamb Street, only what's in the public documents, which was attached to our petition, which explicitly state Lamb Street throughout this part of the town is 50 feet wide.
Any other questions?
So is this then just about the days in West Penn? To make some kind of an agreement?
We have a letter from West Penn.
I saw that, yeah.
If you want, if council wants to consider, a conditional approval, I think you'd have to include the other utilities in that conditional approval. I mean, they're on the poles and everything, so if you want to do that, you could.
I understand your concern about utilities, I think we all do, but then why would this be in front of us tonight? Like if it's such a huge problem to allow them to have this opportunity for us to have the authority to let them vacate this, but yet it sounds like West Penn Power may not.
They're going through a process. The process calls for a public hearing. That's why it's here on the agenda.
We're the ones vacating.
Well, they're requesting.
Yeah.
They're requesting we do it,
Yes.
but can we do that legally without West Penn Power's? Like if it's before us to vacate it.
I think that's my question.
Yeah, if it's before us to vacate it, here we sit to decide this, but yet, Ralph brings up, well, wait a minute, West Penn Power and the other utilities, which makes perfect sense. I mean, we don't want to mess with that. Doesn't want that to happen.
We're not supposed to be talking in the public hearing, but we're supposed to be just listening. Is that
Yes.
correct? So
Yes.
I'll save my comment.
Well, we'll get to the action items, so.
You're fine.
Sorry, Kent.
In terms of process, our position would be it's section 1731 of the Borough Code. It states that after a hearing, if you all approve it, you're to adopt an ordinance vacating the portion of the road within 30 days. And so our position would be if West Penn decides to present us with a right-of-way, and if we were to refuse to sign it, that may change your mind on whether to adopt the ordinance or not. But if we adopt it and alleviate those concerns, you could adopt that ordinance 30 days from now or whenever your next meeting is.
Well, what's the comments on? Oh, we can't
We
comment.
can't comment until you close the public hearing.
Okay. Well, should we close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second to that?
Yes.
Well, the hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Joanne, trustee Basie made the motion, and your second to close the hearing.
So we added the motion right here.
Yeah.
So I make a conditional motion to vacate the property with the condition being that Comcast, Verizon, and West Penn Power all agree to a easement with the days on continued access to that property for any services that are needed on the utilities.
A private easement.
Yes.
Could I add in that attorney does the draft ordinance? Save us a few dollars.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
I mean, that only makes perfect common sense, right? I mean, I don't.
Did you second the motion?
We need a second.
Yes,
I second the motion.
Did you say?
Is there discussion?
Yes, of course we would want them to come in and service the power lines. For Pete's sake.
Okay. So, any other discussion? Roll call vote, please, Mr. Holman.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey?
Yes.
There you go. Okay. Next item, consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the council request specific items to be removed for a separate action. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? Oh, there is no discussion. Roll call vote. Sorry about that.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey?
Yes, even though I wasn't at the last meeting.
Okay, moving on. Item 9, reports. What, did I miss one?
Oh, no, the mayor, we took care of that. I was just going to say the chief,
You good, Mayor?
chief had to be excused, so.
Well, do you have any other comments?
No, if there's any issues with the police reporter parking, email chief or myself, and we will get to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We do have Office of Community Affairs. I need a motion and a second to approve the following HARB projects. I'll read them. 384 East, we can take them all together, I believe.
I'd like to move one separate.
Okay, which one?
435 North Spring.
435 removed?
Yep.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve 384 East Lynn Street, exterior window and door replacement, 469 East Curtain, replace existing windows with new wooden windows, same style grid, paint all trim work and doors, add gutters, downspouts, and replace accent roofs. 469 East Curtain, add a freestanding deck to the rear of the home. In your packet, you've seen the photographs of the house. So I'm looking for a motion and a second on those 1, 2, 3.
So moved, Brackbill.
Thank you, Randy.
Second.
Thank you,
Sedgwick?
Johanna.
I was the other one that didn't say anything.
Any discussion on those 3 items?
Dan?
Any discussion? Okay.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey?
Yes.
Okay, those were approved unanimously. Now, a motion for 435 North Spring Street, and an L-shaped porch to cover the front of the entrance. Do I have a motion for that?
I would like to make a motion to return this to HARB to review following the construction guidelines outlined by both zoning and our ordinance. As soon as someone's second, I'll explain why I'm asking for that.
Second.
Okay. The reason I'm asking for that is that when the owner of the property came to the house, to the HARB, not the house, she only gave a general explanation of what she wants to do. There were no plans, and this is a major construction issue that it typically requires, when you're adding a porch to a house, requires plans to make sure it fits zoning and that the materials meet the HARB guidelines. None of that was done. She just came in and made a general, I want to put a roof, I want to put cement, and there was no details and no plans that were presented to the minutes say that it was a unanimous vote to accept it. It was not. There was one nay for that very reason. It wasn't that the person who voted no, is they wanted to see the things and it wasn't there. So I would like the HARB to review it again with those materials based on the...
Hold on.
1 second, HARB does nothing with zoning.
I know they don't.
They do aesthetic changes to what can be seen from a public right-of-way. We have a zoning administrator that will has to sign off on it. We have a building permit process that you have to go through to get a permit to construct, and that can come afterwards. That has nothing to do with
But the-
approving this HARB application.
But the aesthetic, Ralph, the aesthetic designs according to the U.S. National Trust program says the materials and design stuff for additions to property need to be presented. That was not presented.
Aesthetics, and you have a recommendation for approval from your HARB board. I don't understand what this is about.
Well, Harp recommended to approve it, correct?
Yes, it is here.
Yeah.
They did, well, I'm not going to go into the details, but I believe that this needs to go back. We have had other ones that have gone to great detail about what materials, when I did added on my porch, we had to have an architect design, review, and show what it was that we were trying to do. This didn't happen in this case. She came in and said, I want to add a porch. It was late in the meeting, and they were late, and so they quickly said yes and just left because they wanted to get out of the meeting. That is not, in my opinion, something that should be done. I think it needs to go back one more time to look at the aesthetics, as Ralph says, but with the materials that are being used and with a rendering of what it's supposed to look like, because that was not there. We've had them in every other case. This was not presented to HARB. I'm not saying it's probably a bad idea. I'm just saying that that process needs to happen.
Okay, is there any other comments?
I'm assuming that the HARB has done what their due diligence and looked at what they have. So
Same here.
I will, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay.
It's here.
Other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Wait, what are we voting on?
What are we voting on?
Oh, you're voting on whether you're going to approve the HARB recommended 435
No, that wasn't my
North-
motion.
They
My motion
did
was to send
recommend.
it, no, my motion was to send it back to HARB. So if you
Okay,
vote,
to
so if
send
you
it back
vote-
to- I got it, Joanne,
Okay.
yes. So you're voting on to send this request at 435 North Spring Street to add an L-shaped porch to cover the front of the entrance. Joanne made a motion, and it was seconded by Randy, to send this back to HARB for reconsideration. HARB made the recommendation to approve it. So we're voting now whether you want to send it back to HARB or not. So roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bernier.
No.
Mr. Brackville.
No.
Ms. Clayton.
No.
Ms. Dan.
No.
Mr. Johnson.
No.
Ms. McKean.
No.
Ms. Purnell.
No.
Ms. Sedgwick.
No.
Ms. Tosti Vasey.
yes.
Okay, we'll move on. Let's see what else we have.
So we have to approve that?
Now
Oh,
you
yeah. Okay, now I'm looking for a motion to approve 435 North Spring Street, and I'll read it again. Add an L-shaped porch to cover the front of the entrance. Is there a motion to approve it?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Barbara.
I would like to amend that with the asbestos tile roof to match the main roof and not the metal roof that she originally requested, because that's what HARB said.
I don't see it here.
All these are approved as recommended.
HARB
As
said, if you
recommended.
read the minutes, HARB says asbestos roof, not the metal roof she requested.
What I'm saying, Joanne, is whatever HARB recommended, that's
What
what
we're
you're
approving.
approving.
Now,
We're
I'd like
not
to second
changing,
her
Yeah.
to approve it the way that it was presented to us.
yes, we're not
Well, wait.
changing what HARB recommended.
Did we get a second to your amendment?
Did you make it?
No.
I'll say.
You're seconding
To what's my,
Joanne's amendment? You're seconding?
no, I'm not. I thought you were going
Are
somewhere
you
else.
clear on what?
I just want it to be in the record that it's an asbestos roof and not a barn roof is what she had originally requested, because goes back to that standing seam issue that we've had before. Her request was to put a metal roof, just like the one that's on her shed in the back. That is a barn roof. That is not
ribbed roof.
It's a ribbed roof.
So that is what HARB approved of?
No, it did not. It's specifically.
We're approving what was in the minutes.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
So, but what I'm saying is that I want it to be on our record that it's the asbestos and not the metal. That's all I'm trying to do.
We don't do that with any other
We
application.
did, done it before.
All we do is we approve the recommendation. The details are in there.
Okay. So now I'm confused.
Barbara made a motion to accept it the way
Yeah,
it's
but I was
presented.
trying to think, there was no second to your amendment, I think. Is that?
That's correct.
Accurate? Okay. So we're back to the original motion
Right.
of approving 435 North Spring. Is there any other discussion?
Need a second for that.
I'll second it.
Yeah. Barbara seconded. Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please, Mr. Holman.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackville?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey?
Yes, but I'm not happy.
Next item, let's see, where are we at? Liaison reports, authorities, any questions on the reports that were submitted? Okay, we'll move on then. Current and old business. Next item is Climate Action Plan and Environmental Advisory Board. I'm looking for a motion and a second to suspend all borough-related activity on the Climate Action Plan / Environmental Advisory Board.
I'll make that motion.
Barbara.
Second.
Second by Bernier. Discussion.
Yes, sustainability is an economic issue for Bellefonte. Having the CAP and the EAB helps improve our ability to receive funding from the state, particularly if we get certified under the Sustainable Pennsylvania Certification Program. If we rescind the CAP and the EAB and not pass the resolution required for the certification program, we will likely need to either raise local taxes for programs and projects that these state grants could have covered, or we would be unable to do these projects and programs due to lack of funding. The majority of the community that have talked to us appear to support the Climate Action Plan and the EAB, both by letters and here in person this evening. It is a plan for economic viability for the community. I am voting no on the motion to eliminate the EAB and the Climate Action Plan. In addition, before you vote this evening, consider this. Article 1 of the Pennsylvania Constitution contains the Declaration of Rights. Article 27 focuses on natural resources and the public estate. It was added to the Pennsylvania Constitution in 1967. It says, quote, "The people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all the people, including generations yet to come. As trustees of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all the people." The previous council took this Declaration of Rights to heart when they created the Climate Action Plan. The Pennsylvania Constitution requires each of us to be trustees of our natural resources and the public estate by conserving and maintaining the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment for ourselves as well as the generations yet to come. Again, I reiterate, I'm going to uphold my oath of office this evening to uphold the Constitution, and will support the members of our community by voting no on the motion to eliminate the EAB and Climate Action Plan. I hope you do too.
Thank you. Other comments?
So the motion is to eliminate the EAB, but we talked about possibly allowing them to continue. Would that be separate from the
I think we need to
council?
do the motion, and then after this motion, whatever it turns out to be, if we eliminate it and you want to have that discussion to have some sort of committee that continues the activity, that's another discussion that has to be agreed upon by the council.
Yeah, I think the,
Environmental Advisory Board?
yeah, the programs that they offer, the free programs that they offer for, learning purposes are definitely worthwhile. I just don't want it to cost the taxpayers any more money
Okay.
as far as, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff goes.
Other comments?
Well, I said this earlier, I think having a plan is not a bad idea. I just want to make sure that we're not trying to be somebody else than we are. We're Bellefonte, we go about our steps, how we do things, and how we address items, and this has been a sticky one. I don't like some of the language that's in it. I'd like to see some of that taken out. If I could get that, I would probably say, yeah, let's use this for a plan, and if our residents want to use it, they can use it. If our residents don't want to use it, they don't have to use it. You know, I mean, I just think that's where we're at right now at this time. To have these dates, and no matter what you say about the long reach of the government, it does definitely lay itself out that way, the way it's written in there. And that all needs to be redone as well. And that would be a good way to start this, even if we kept the EAB and then use the cap for the program or for the plan and have it on a website so people can go to it. I don't see a problem with that.
Other comments?
I just want to add to that, as I take it all in, you know, I don't have a vote on this, I don't know if it's going to pass or not pass, but just by hearing people speak, we've heard education over and over. We've heard somebody say, I would like to get solar panels, but I need help. And I think that reiterates to what you're saying, to provide a resource for people who would like to initiate some of those things to get help to do it. So I think that goes to what you were just saying as well. You know, some people have taken steps and measures, and some people don't know how to take those measures. So if we can take anything out of this, I think the educational piece of it is something that we can take. Some community members don't want educated on it, some do. So I think that's something that we as a council can take from that and hopefully provide to our districts.
Next, Mayor.
Sure.
Others?
I do.
Yes.
I read this plan a couple times at different times since it was brought out. Some of my comments, I really like the idea of workshops, particularly the rainwater collection, recycling, composting, pollinator gardens, all those things that if we want to do those, I think those are great ideas, and I like the idea of the education. I feel like the borough staff and council have spent way too much time, attention, and money on this plan. I think we have other things that we should be paying more attention to, which I'll get to in a minute. I have talked to many of the residents, and almost all of them that have talked to me are upset with this plan. It really lays out as a, you must do this, you must do that. And anyone I've talked to does not want that. I think many of us are very willing to make changes that make sense for our families and our town, but the idea of our local government dictating these things, which is what it feels like to a lot of people, is something I really cannot support. I believe there's enough legislation through the county, the state, and the federal government that refers to a lot of these things. As a council, we need to focus on our core functions that are the most important things for our residents in our town. Some of those that I would like to focus on, and I think we have to some extent, are public safety, parks, water, sewer, refuse, and streets. I'll be voting to suspend the climate action plan. I think at this point to do otherwise would be fiscally irresponsible.
Others? Comments? I'm hearing no comments, so I'd like a roll call vote, please.
What are we voting on? To
suspend. I beg your
A
pardon?
yay is a...
Do you want me to reread the motion?
I know the motion, I just want to know what the, is a yay saying, yes, we're going to remove it, or is it a nay?
Well, the motion is to suspend all borough-related, so a yay means that you're voting to suspend it.
To get rid of the climate action plan and the environmental advisory board.
Right. Any more discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brockbill?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
No.
Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean?
No.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
No.
Ms. Tosti Basie?
No.
That's 5-4 to suspend all borough-related activity on the climate action plan. That's what I have. What did you have?
5-4.
Okay.
As that goes on, we can come back to this.
Absolutely.
And reset this up the way that.
Absolutely.
As a council, full
Has
council
a-
work on this.
Has, under Robert's rules, since you've suspended and gotten rid of it, you have to have a motion to reconsider.
Right.
And the person who voted in the majority has to make that motion. So Deb, myself, Shauna, and
No.
Joanna cannot make that motion.
Yeah. Thank you, Joanne, for
Yeah.
making that clear. We're moving on to the next one. Memo from Finance Director, Budget versus Actual Summary, June 2023. I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve at Budget versus Actual Summary, June 2023.
So moved.
I hate to do this, but our finance director asked or requested that the memo be read.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Holderman.
Okay, you have it there, great.
Okay, this is from Finance Director Roy McGowan at the August 7th, 2023 Bellefonte Borough Council meeting. It was requested that the July 2023 budget versus actual summary report be removed from the consent agenda due to an incorrect date. The report was actually the June year to date expended. If you would like the report changed, I would be happy to do that. However, 2023 actuals will not be available until 2024.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I redo the motion or not?
I think you got a motion, second.
And you wanted to read that?
Yes.
Now, we have
Yes.
questions.
Yes.
Any questions?
Who made the motion, who seconded it?
I can't remember.
Randy made the motion. I did not hear a second.
Was there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Deb. Any comments? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey?
Yes.
Coalition Against Bigger Trucks, request for a letter of support. Council may consider taking action on this request. Are we permitted to give that?
I'll make a motion that we send the letter. We sent one last year.
Okay.
We might send one the year before.
Yep, second to
I'll
that?
second it.
Thank you, Barb. Discussion?
I think there's new pieces of legislation that are being submitted, so that's why there's another request.
Any comments on that, Deb?
The two pieces of legislation that are included in your packet were last in front of the State House on May 23rd. So it is, or not the State House, this is in Washington. So it is progressing, but if you look at the votes, they're very close. It's not a super majority one way or the other. I think the concern, for me anyway, is that large vehicles on interstates are one thing, but they are not loaded and unloaded on the interstates. It's off the secondary and smaller roadways. And the infrastructure from one state to another is completely inconsistent. It's just a much larger issue than increasing the weight and the size of the trucks. It impacts the roadways that are in our communities too.
Thank you. Other comments? Roll call.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
And Ms. Tosti Vasey?
Yes.
Okay, the next one, DBI under the lights, special event. We've sort of went through that one already.
Yes.
We're good to go with that.
So that one's canceled.
Well, they're going to
Yeah, it's
They're
not
gonna
on the
submit a
agenda
new one,
anymore.
right. Bellefonte Rental Code update, there's no, y'all can read this. I'm not going to read it unless you want me to.
It's for the public.
Okay. The rental code update, the amendments, following council's action on the proposed ordinance amendments at the August 7th meeting, Center Region Code has stated that no further action by council needs to take place. Bellefonte will operate under the previously approved ordinance of 2017. So, okay. Bellefonte Borough Special Events Calendar, August through October 2023 is in your packet. Looks really busy. Great stuff. Next one is request to amend commercial business. Oh, this is rejected, or not rejected, but we took that off the agenda because some other things are happening with that.
The requester has withdrawn.
Was withdrawn, yeah. Thank you, Ralph.
Yeah, sure.
Here we go. South Spring Street streetscape bids review. The low bidder did not have a complete bid package submission. Staff is recommending that, based on the solicitor's opinion, the borough accept the next lowest bid. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the CDBG Spring Street Skeet. I did that on purpose. Spring Streetscape bid to John Nastis Construction for $194,981.74.
So moved.
Thank you, Joanne.
I'll second.
Thank you, Barbara. The information is in your packet. Do you have any questions for Ralph or Dawn on that?
Say that again.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yeah.
Ms. Clayton.
Yes.
Ms. Dan.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. McKean.
Yes.
Ms. Purnell.
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Yes.
And Ms. Tosti Vasey.
Yes.
Nastis Construction final invoice for Governor's Park baseball field. Motion and a second to approve Nastis Construction final invoice on the condition of the architect's review and approval in the amount of $64,386.60.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Barbara.
I'll second.
Thank you, Joanna. Joanna.
Oh.
Oh, no, it was Shauna. Sorry, you're both, I apologize. Okay. I thought Joanna made it. Okay. Discussion.
Just so everybody knows, I did get the architect. He approved it today, so it's finalized.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Ms. Clayton.
Yes.
Ms. Dan.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. McKean.
Yes.
Ms. Purnell.
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Yes.
And Ms. Tosti Vasey.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion approved unanimously. New business, Penn State University Sustainability Project. Water bottling study updates. I'd like a motion and a second to approve the water bottling study update for Bellefonte Sustainability Project.
So moved, Brackbill.
I'll second.
Clayton.
Ralph, what do you have to say?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know if it's necessary. I guess this was a submitted project to Penn State Sustainability, and you were saying before the meeting, we weren't sure if we actually had to approve it, but since it's up for a motion, we might as well go through with
Well,
it.
since we've suspended the EAB and you,
We've
This is not-
done this way
Yes.
before the
This is not that.
EAB. Borough Council has done these events way before that EAB ever existed.
I think this is something.
This is a different program.
yeah, no, what I just heard you say, which is why I said what I said, was that because we suspended it, you didn't know if we could actually do this anymore.
No,
That was,
no,
okay.
no.
That was what I understood
No.
you saying. That's why I responded
Okay,
the way
well,
I did.
I'm trying to answer your question. It sounds like all we're doing is recommending that this is our project for
Okay.
the students to do.
That's
Okay.
correct.
But we're not, I guess we have it listed as an action item, but I thought I heard you say that wasn't necessary.
No, that's what I
That's
heard
what
you
I
say.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Ms. Clayton.
Yes.
Ms. Dan.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. McKean.
Yes.
Ms. Purnell.
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Yes.
And Ms. Tosti Vasey.
Yes.
Okay, next item. Council member comments for the good of the order. Would you like to start?
I have no comments.
Okay.
I have none.
Joanne?
I'm not thinking on my feet very quickly tonight, so,
Okay.
no, nothing.
It's almost unanimous.
The property owner, Mr. Barry Myers, renovated a building It includes several buildings, but he started with the building that involves Parrish's drug, and above there, the two floors above, Mr. Brackville handed out a little, or gave us the information about an open house, because it was a card. I had the opportunity to go just to walk through, because there's another piece of information I want to tell you. First of all, it's outstanding, beautiful work that was done by the owner. I mean, these apartments slash short-term units, which it's zoned commercial, so it's a great idea. They're outstandingly, I mean, they're very beautiful, but the piece I wanted to tell you is this is the first applicant property owner to use the LERTA ordinance that council approved. So so far, everything's working very well, and, you know, if he's very successful, which we hope he is, he'll continue right down the block. We talked about having him move across the block and continue through town, but we'll see what happens. But he just did an outstanding job, and I know Mr. Brackville had some assistance there, but this just turned out beautiful. Get a chance, check it out.
Should be pictures coming out, I guess.
Oh, okay, great.
They're promoting it now.
Great, yes.
Just don't know from who.
I have nothing. Don?
No.
Buddy?
You know, as mayor, something good, you know, I think I take something from every meeting and hearing the public get up and speak. And one thing I think we are reminded of, whether it's myself or somebody else who maybe doesn't get something that they're trying for the community. I know myself, I try to find new ways to do something else for the community. And at the end of the day, whether we leave here happy, disgruntled, whatever, I think our community is very blessed to have everybody work for them, and I know I'm thankful for everybody at this table and the time they put in. So hopefully that makes sense. Something good to share.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
Randy?
Yeah. Somebody came up to me last week and asked me if I was part of the project, or a part owner of the project that Perry was working on. So I want to put a knife in that rumor. Say no. I was helping with it, but I was not involved monetarily with it as far as that goes.
Thanks. Joanne?
To be the downer, since we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, which means we no longer have the EAB, that also means that the two programs planned for September and October, which were EAB programs, are basically dead in water unless something happens elsewise. The first one was talking about the climate action plan and what it could or could not do on September 16th, and the second one is the community composting program at Mustard Lane on October 7th. All the other things that we will let the EAB know that we've shut them, that you all have, by a vote of 5-4, have shut them down.
I thought the composting thing was still going on.
Well, when you said you suspend all activities of the EAB, that was one of the activities of the EAB, and that to me means that one shut down in October as well.
I think I'm just making the comment, and I could be wrong. I think these educational programs probably could continue.
Not unless there's some future action by the council at this point.
Well, that'll be the next meeting in September.
What I heard during the discussion was there's educational opportunities that shouldn't be passed up. It doesn't necessarily...
Right now, there's no EAB. There's nobody to do the planning and coordination. You have previously stated that you do not want staff time handling all of these programs. If that's true, then there's nobody to handle these, therefore there's nobody to do the planning.
Okay.
Therefore, there's no program.
Okay. Deb?
State trivia. It's probably in Kent's book. On this date, August 21st, 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state.
Nice.
Very interesting. You should have taken the trivia question.
I've got X-ray vision, I can see something.
Before the meeting, you can have it anytime, that's an excellent question. Let me look up Hawaii.
Yeah, we did that. Well,
Hey.
okay, look up Alaska, when was their station?
Should be in the beginning.
49, wasn't it?
Really, this was written by kids to their teachers. No. What about Alaska?
Sooner?
What was the date for Alaska?
I know, it wasn't that long ago.
No.
I thought, was it?
I think it's January 3rd, 59.
I thought it was about the same time.
It was, there were
No, it's
months
always
of each
intrigued me
other.
about Hawaii.
The U.S. bought Alaska from Russia in 1867 for only 2 cents an acre. People then thought it was a bad deal for the U.S. Must have had counsel back then. They were wrong. Alaska is rich with oil and fish, and it's also beautiful. It's only 2.5 miles to Russia.
Yeah.
From Alaska.
What was the date?
They've been floating around the coast.
What do you mean? I don't know.
Statehood, statehood.
I got carried away.
I think it's January 3rd,
Why doesn't it say it
59.
here?
It's the same year, but I don't know which was first.
What's intrigued me about Hawaii was that when Pearl Harbor was attacked, Hawaii was still a territory, it wasn't a state.
See what this trivia thing's doing?
Rita?
My turn. I just was looking at the calendar, I was thinking maybe I might list a couple things it looks like is coming up. We have a street closure for the Safe Routes Community Net on Sunday.
That's correct.
Coming up. And St. John's Blessing of the Backpacks is coming up on Sunday.
Yep.
There's one other thing I saw coming up before the next council. Oops, I just lost my calendar. Oh, dang it.
Halloween parade.
Before the next
Before the
council.
next council meeting,
Yeah.
come on. I lost it. It'll take me a while to find it. But anyway, I just thought it might be kind of fun to promote a couple things.
All right.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. We're adjourned.